The world is filled with distractions, provocations, and people who seek to draw you into petty conflicts. Some do it out of envy, others out of weakness, and some simply because they gain satisfaction from watching you lose your composure. Niccolò Machiavelli, the master of power and strategy, would remind us that allowing others to disturb your peace is the first step toward giving them control over you. He understood something essential. The person who can be easily provoked, offended, or unsettled becomes the puppet of those who know how to pull his strings. In this video, we will explore how to adopt a Machiavellian mindset so that no one, friend, rival, or enemy, can ever truly bother you. We will examine the psychological traps of irritation, the strategic advantage of composure, and the art of turning even insults into tools of power. 1. The danger of being easily provoked. Machiavelli would caution that the man who reveals how easily he can be provoked places himself in the most vulnerable position possible. To be provoked is to be exposed. It signals to the world that you are not the master of your emotions, but the servant of anyone clever enough to agitate them. Consider a prince who loses his composure every time his authority is questioned. At first, it may look like righteous strength, a sign of confidence. But quickly, his enemies notice the pattern. His anger is predictable, his pride is fragile, and both can be manipulated. In this way, his enemies need not challenge him with armies or plots. They need only whisper the right insult, and he will sabotage himself with rash decisions. His throne may collapse not from external assault, but from the weakness of his own temperament. The same holds true in our daily lives. When people see that certain words, gestures, or criticisms cut deep, they begin to wield those very tools against you. They know exactly how to make you stumble, a sarcastic remark here, a dismissive look there, and suddenly your calm is gone, your focus shattered. What you may think is just a moment of irritation is, in truth, a surrender of power. You become transparent, and transparency is the death of strategy. Strategy requires unpredictability, the ability to conceal what truly moves you. But if others can read your anger as easily as a book, they will script your story for you, page by page, until you no longer steer your own course. To be easily provoked, then, is not a small flaw. It is the seed of ruin. It is to hand your enemies the keys to your emotions, and through your emotions, the keys to your fate. Machiavelli would insist that this is the ultimate danger. You cease to be the author of your destiny and become a mere puppet whose strings are pulled by the very people you should command. To guard against this, one must treat irritation not as a passing annoyance, but as a flashing warning sign that someone else has begun to seize control of the battlefield within your mind. Only by recognizing this danger can you begin to fortify yourself against it. 2. Control is power, and power is control. At the very heart of Machiavelli's philosophy lies a truth so simple yet so often neglected. Control is the essence of power, and power is nothing more than the art of control. A man who cannot control himself cannot control anything else. If you are swept away by anger, jealousy, or irritation, then your mind, your greatest weapon, has already been disarmed. The person who angers you commands you because they dictate your reactions, shift your focus, and steer your decisions. Machiavelli would argue that this loss of composure is the first step to ruin, because once you yield your inner fortress, all your outer defenses will eventually collapse. To master the world, you must first master yourself. But control does not mean suppressing every emotion or living like a stone. It means becoming the strategist of your own passions, deciding when and how they are expressed. The man who appears calm when others expect rage does not look weak, he looks formidable. He radiates an aura of unshakable stability, a signal that nothing ordinary can reach him. And in a world where most people are prisoners of their impulses, the rare individual who remains unmoved stands out like a fortress rising above the storm. This composure itself becomes a weapon because it frustrates aggressors, confuses rivals, and earns the respect, even the fear, of those who cannot rattle you. Machiavelli understood that appearances rule men's judgments more than reality. If you project calmness while others are unraveling, they will begin to see you as a figure of strength, even if, inside, you too wrestle with doubt or irritation. Control, then, is not only personal discipline, it is theater, a display of authority that convinces the world you are untouchable. And once people believe you are beyond their reach, they stop trying to disturb you and begin to fall under your influence. This is the paradox Machiavelli reveals. Control over yourself eventually becomes control over others, because the one who cannot be provoked silently rules those who can. 3. Understand the source of insults. Machiavelli would tell us that no insult is ever random. Words that sting, gestures that humiliate, and challenges that provoke all arise from motives hidden beneath the surface. The careless observer hears only the insult itself and reacts, but the strategist asks, why was this said, and what purpose does it serve? Most insults are less about you and more about the insecurities of the one who delivers them. The envious man insults your success because your achievements remind him of his own failures. The weak man mocks your strength because it magnifies his own inadequacy. The fearful man ridicules your confidence because it exposes the fragility of his own mask. When viewed through this lens, an insult ceases to be an attack and becomes a revelation. Every insult is an unintentional confession, a window into another person's mind. Insults are mirrors, reflecting not your weaknesses, but theirs. To understand this is to transform every slight into valuable information. Your enemy believes he has struck you, but in reality, he has only exposed his own soft spots. Machiavelli's genius was in seeing human behavior not through the lens of morality, but through utility. Insults are not moral offenses, they are tactical maneuvers. They are probes designed to test your composure, to map out your vulnerabilities, to see whether you are made of iron or glass. If you react with anger, you confirm your weakness. If you remain calm and study the insult for what it reveals, you gain an advantage. Over time, this habit makes you nearly impossible to rattle because you no longer hear insults as attacks, you hear them as intelligence reports. And once you see them this way, you realize that every attempt to bother you is, in truth, just another opportunity to know your enemy better than they know themselves. 4. The art of strategic silence. Machiavelli would argue that silence is one of the most underrated weapons in the arsenal of power. People expect words, they crave reactions, they feed on responses. When you remain silent in the face of insult or provocation, you deny your opponent the satisfaction they sought, and in that denial, you unnerve them more than any sharp reply could. Silence communicates something deeper than words ever can, that the aggressor is beneath your attention. And in matters of power, to be ignored is often more painful than to be attacked. For an enemy who longs for validation, even in the form of your anger, there is no greater humiliation than to realize their efforts have not even grazed your armor. But silence is not mere passivity. It is strategy. It forces the other person to reveal more, to speak longer, to dig their own grave with words. The more they talk, while you say nothing, the more desperate they become to provoke you, and in their desperation, they expose their weaknesses. What was once a duel of words becomes a one-sided display of their insecurities. Silence, then, is not weakness, but dominance. It is the refusal to enter a battle on your enemy's terms. By withholding your reaction, you compel them to fight shadows, to grow exhausted, attacking a wall that never crumbles. There is also an elegance to silence, a kind of regal composure that elevates you above the quarrel. Machiavelli would remind us that rulers are not equals with every common voice that challenges them. If a prince were to argue with every peasant who shouted an insult from the crowd, he would lower himself to the level of those he rules. The same applies to us. Not every provocation deserves our attention, and not every insult is worth our energy.
The wise man knows that sometimes silence is the loudest statement of all. When you refuse to answer, the world interprets your quiet as strength, your restraint as superiority. And over time, silence builds a reputation more enduring than anger, the reputation of one who cannot be dragged into petty conflicts because he has fixed his gaze on far greater victories.
5. When to strike back with precision. Machiavelli never advised endless patience or infinite tolerance. He knew that power, if left undefended, erodes. There comes a moment when silence ceases to be strategy and begins to look like weakness, and in that moment, retaliation is necessary. But here lies the difference between the ordinary man and the Machiavellian strategist. The ordinary man strikes in anger, while the strategist strikes in calculation. To lash out blindly is to show you have been mastered by emotion. To strike with precision is to show you have mastered both yourself and your enemy. The key is to respond not when you are provoked, but when the response serves your advantage. Think of the serpent, which does not strike at every movement around it, but waits until the perfect moment when the attack will be swift, decisive, and final. Machiavelli would counsel you to adopt the same posture. If someone threatens your reputation, if their disrespect risks undermining your authority, then retaliation is no longer about wounded pride. It is about survival of influence. And when you do strike, it must be in such a way that it leaves no doubt. Half measures invite continued disrespect. Decisive measures command permanent respect. Better to act once with overwhelming force than to be dragged into repeated skirmishes that slowly bleed away your strength. Retaliation, however, need not always be direct. Sometimes it is a public rebuke that reasserts your authority. Other times it is a quiet maneuver that removes the offender from your path without spectacle. What matters is that the lesson is unmistakable. Disrespect carries a cost, and that cost is too high for others to risk paying. In this way, your retaliation does not just silence one enemy, it serves as a warning to all. Machiavelli would say that fear, when carefully cultivated, is more reliable than love. But fear must be clean, precise, and never excessive, lest it turn to hatred. The goal is not to destroy for the sake of destruction, but to establish boundaries so clear that few will dare test them again. Thus, to strike back with precision is to remind the world that your calm is not weakness, but choice. You are tolerant because it serves you, silent because it strengthens you, but when pushed too far, you are capable of decisive and ruthless action. That balance between patience and punishment is the essence of Machiavellian power. It ensures that while most insults pass like wind through trees, the few that threaten your foundation are met with the storm. 6. Appear unbothered, even if you are not. Machiavelli understood better than anyone that power is not only what you possess, it is what others believe you possess. Appearances matter more than truth, because people cannot see into your mind, but they can see how you carry yourself. If you allow anger, irritation, or hurt to show on your face, then no matter how strong you truly are, the world will assume you are fragile. But if you maintain an air of calm, even when provoked, even when boiling inside, then people will treat you as unshakable. This is why appearing unbothered is as important, if not more important, than actually being unbothered. It is a performance of power, and over time, performance becomes reality.
Consider the ruler who hears rumors whispered about him in court. If he reacts furiously, calling out every critic, he validates the whispers and shows they have pierced him. But if he laughs them off, or better yet, ignores them entirely, he projects an image of a man too secure to be unsettled by gossip. Even if, in private, he rages at the betrayal, the public only sees the mask of composure. That mask protects him more than any army because it convinces others that he cannot be moved by idle chatter. Soon, the gossip dies out, not because it has stopped, but because it has lost its power. People grow bored when they see no reaction, and the ruler's silence transforms what could have been a weakness into a demonstration of strength. The same is true in our personal lives. Every human being has soft spots, words that sting, actions that irritate. But if you reveal those soft spots openly, others will press them, whether intentionally or not. Machiavelli would insist that you cover them with a shield of composure. Even if someone strikes exactly where it hurts, let your outward demeanor remain unshaken. Train yourself to wear the mask of indifference, not because you feel nothing, but because revealing your feelings serves no strategic purpose. Over time, as you grow accustomed to this mask, you will find it hardens into true resilience. What begins as an act becomes a habit, and what begins as a habit becomes your nature. To appear unbothered, then, is to send a signal to the world: I am untouchable. It is to show that you are not controlled by insults, not shaken by criticism, not destabilized by provocation. Whether or not it is fully true inside you does not matter, because in the realm of power, perception shapes reality. And when others come to believe that you cannot be rattled, they will stop trying, leaving you free to move through the world with the quiet dominance of one who is, in every way that counts, beyond reach. 7. Turn irritation into fuel. Machiavelli would remind us that irritation is not always a curse. It can be a source of energy, provided you know how to harness it. The ordinary man wastes his irritation in bursts of anger, arguments, and fruitless complaints. He spends his strength proving he has been wronged, while his enemies quietly grow stronger. But the Machiavellian thinker channels that irritation into momentum. Every insult, every dismissal, every attempt to provoke him becomes fuel for greater discipline, sharper focus, and more relentless ambition. Instead of asking, "Why would they treat me this way?" he asks, "How can I turn this into power?" In this way, irritation becomes not a distraction, but a weapon, a fire that forges resilience rather than consuming it. Think of the man who is mocked for his failures. The weak man takes the insult to heart and collapses under shame. The strong man throws the insult back with rage and burns bridges that could have served him later. But the Machiavellian strategist takes note of the laughter, remembers every voice that mocked him, and uses that memory as a silent motivator.
He sharpens his skills, builds his influence, and fortifies his position until the day comes when those same voices fall silent. His revenge is not in angry words. It is in undeniable success. The irritation that once threatened to break him has instead built him into something unassailable. This is the genius of turning irritation into fuel. It transforms your enemies into your unwilling allies. Every slight, every criticism, every act of disrespect becomes an unintentional contribution to your growth. Those who sought to weaken you end up strengthening you, and those who tried to disturb your peace end up reinforcing your resolve. Machiavelli would say this is the highest form of cunning, using even hostility as a tool for advancement. When others realize that nothing they do can derail you, that even their insults only push you higher, they will hesitate to challenge you again. For how can you fight a man who grows stronger every time you strike him? In this way, irritation ceases to be a burden. It becomes a form of hidden wealth, a resource that most squander but the wise secretly convert into power. The key is to resist the immediate urge to lash out, to step back and ask how the provocation can serve your larger strategy. Over time, you will find that nothing truly bothers you, because everything, even hostility, becomes part of your arsenal. And that, Machiavelli would say, is the ultimate victory. To take the weapons meant to wound you and use them to build your empire instead. 8. The Machiavellian advantage of detachment. At the highest level of strategy, Machiavelli would insist that the greatest weapon you can wield is detachment, the ability to stand above the chaos, unshaken by the noise of insults, rumors, and petty provocations. Most people live chained to every word spoken about them, every look cast in their direction, every judgment made in their absence. They are like ships tossed by the waves, moving wherever the winds of opinion push them. But the Machiavellian mind stands apart. It sees that not all battles are worth fighting, not every word is worth answering, and not every enemy is worth recognizing. Detachment allows you to conserve your energy for wars that matter, while others exhaust themselves chasing every minor quarrel. Detachment is not indifference, it is strategy. It does not mean you feel nothing, but rather that you refuse to let feelings dictate your actions. When someone insults you, the untrained mind reacts immediately, blinded by anger. The detached mind pauses, examines, and asks, does this serve me? Does this insult require a response, or does it reveal more if I ignore it? By creating this distance between stimulus and response, you maintain control. You are no longer reacting on someone else's terms. You are deciding on your own. This ability to step outside the moment and see the larger picture is what separates the strategist from the pawn. And here lies the great Machiavellian advantage. Detachment makes you unpredictable. A predictable man can be defeated because his reactions can be calculated. But the detached man, who does not react to every provocation, cannot be manipulated. His enemies throw words like spears, but he does not flinch.
They try to corner him into conflict, but he does not take the bait. They grow frustrated, uncertain, and eventually careless, while he waits with the patience of a hunter who knows the prey will make a fatal move sooner or later. Detachment keeps you above the fray, in control of both yourself and the battlefield. The higher you climb in life, the more essential this becomes. A man who aspires to power cannot afford to be dragged down by petty disputes. The barking of dogs is loudest at the bottom of the hill, but once you rise above, the noise fades into insignificance. Machiavelli would say that to rule effectively, you must act as though you are already above such trivialities. Let others waste their strength in gossip and anger. You will be too busy building an empire. Detachment ensures that no one can ever truly bother you because you no longer fight on their level. You are playing a greater game, and in that game, calmness is the shield, patience is the sword, and detachment is the throne from which you rule. In the end, the wisdom of Machiavelli teaches us that true strength is not found in loud displays of power or in endless battles with every critic who crosses our path. It is found in composure, the ability to remain calm when others seek to disturb you, the discipline to master your own impulses, and the vision to rise above petty quarrels. To never let anyone bother you is not simply a matter of pride, it is a matter of strategy. For the man who can be easily provoked will always live at the mercy of those who know how to provoke him, while the man who is untouchable commands both respect and fear without ever raising his voice. Think of the difference between the weak and the strong. The weak are constantly distracted, wasting their energy defending themselves from every insult, proving themselves to every critic, explaining themselves to every skeptic. They live in chains, slaves to the opinions of others. But the strong, the Machiavellian, see insults as information, silence as power, and composure as dominance. They choose carefully when to respond and when to ignore, when to strike and when to walk away. Their emotions are not tools for others to exploit, but weapons they wield with precision. This is why they cannot be broken, because their strength is not dependent on the noise of the crowd, but on the fortress of their own mind. So ask yourself, how much of your life have you surrendered to irritation? How many hours have you wasted arguing with fools, defending yourself against words that did not matter, letting others live rent-free in your thoughts? Every time you do this, you hand over a piece of your power.
But the moment you decide that no one, not enemy, not rival, not critic, will ever control your state of mind, you reclaim that power in full. From that moment on, you become untouchable. This is the ultimate Machiavellian lesson. The man who cannot be provoked cannot be controlled. The man who cannot be controlled cannot be defeated. And the man who cannot be defeated is the one who rules, not only over others, but over himself. Build this untouchable mind, wear the mask of calm until it becomes your nature, and walk through the world with the quiet confidence of one who knows that nothing and no one can ever truly bother him.